Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. Today we have a rock and roll and super stoked session with Nathaniel from Lead into Gold Astrology. So this is a repeat. We've been planning this, had this in the works for a wee bit. So that's been so today actually Nathaniel is going to show you what he does, and I think a lot of folks are going to be super fascinated with the complexity and nuance of the study and field of astrology. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Nathaniel. So everybody just should say, shut up, because the good stuff is on your side.
Well, thank you so much for being curious and being open to this. I figured this will show a great mirror and a bridge for, how to contemplate something like this.
Yeah.
And giving us a space to, talk about it and ask questions and just consider it from a few different ways. So I'll go ahead and pull my screen up to show you guys. Um, so this is the chart. I sometimes say it's your divine design, your stellar signature. It's the cosmic blueprint of where all the planets were in different signs at the moment that somebody was born. So it's a birth chart, a natal chart, all that kind of stuff. Um, but when people see this, it just looks like a bunch of lines on a page, and it's like, overwhelming. And for whatever reason, my soul has decided that this is a lot of fun, and I have loved learning this language. Um, and I want to kind of preface just thinking about the different lenses. I think the metaphysics or the meta of like how to think about astrology is often more important than like, people are like, just tell me what it means. My thing is there and what's going to happen. Or it's really about how you think about it because it is like a living organic process. I mean, this is like a photo, like flash. This is when you were born, where everything was, but everything kept moving, and there's a way that that story continues, and that we can see it from all these different places. Um, so the first thing to talk about is the star and stars of this show are the planets. It is the personalities of the different spheres in our solar system and how they're configured and arranged, having what I call a conversation that's like an orchestration, a symphony of these different energies. And if you know your Greek gods and goddesses, it makes it a lot easier to vibe into what these archetypal themes are. And I also call them the planets of or the organs of consciousness. That's another way to think about them. The solar system is a living being. The planets are its organs, and each one has a unique impetus and a unique tone, and the way that they all sing together has unique harmonies and combinations of tones and sometimes dissonance, and then the interaction between that happening out and about in the galaxy is in some way resonating almost like a tuning fork with us as this how it fits into the puzzle of who we are with the timings of our life and the seasons. So there's something just very organic and natural about this art. It's a storytelling, contemplating, conversation, communion with the solar system through within ourselves. And so those planets, the planets are all, there is like a little key. I use astro.com. It is a free site that anybody can use. I've taught kids in, an astrology club how to look at their chart with this, but it's got like a key at the bottom that shows you what each planet is. And then a little table for how they're connected in different conversations once you know what that all means. Um, but then in the gist of it, you have a round wheel, and a circle and a wheel is such a great metaphor for the whole. It's the all. It's one complete unity, which everybody is. Everybody is a unified little composite, and there's smaller holes and bigger holes and bigger holes, planet and a solar system and a galaxy, etc. And those metaphors resonate across the board, as above, so below. All that correlation corresponds. And so these planets in that hole around the wheel are in what are divided, I jokingly say, like 12 different pieces of pie. And these 12 divisions are called houses in astrology. And you can think about these 12 houses like departments of life. And everybody, every whole being has all 12 departments. We've got yourself and your stuff and your mind and your family and your fun and your work and your partner and your collaborations and your beliefs and your career and your groups and your connection to everything. And so everybody has all those departments. Those 12 houses directly reflect the 12 signs. So, for example, the fourth sign is Cancer, the fourth house is the domain of life that reflects the archetype of Cancer, home, family, things like that. So, that's where we have that department. Well, we have all 12 of these departments, but everybody's got a different flavor to them. And so, depending on the time you were born, the signs are all spinning around from our Earth-centric perspective. And almost like, the Wheel of Fortune on the show, or, the wheel's spinning and it stops over here at the ascendant or rising sign as the signs are all cascading around. And depending on where it stopped, all 12 signs, you see Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, they're all spun around your 12 houses. And so if we think about the houses, those departments like nouns, they're the nouns of your life. Well, then the signs in each department constitute the adjectives. They modify and describe and flavor those different departments. So everybody has partners, but they're going to have different tastes. And everybody has a career that's going to have a different taste. And so the archetypes are spun around those departments for individuals. Well, the planets, the key figures that are in this soup, the actors on the stage that we're all participating with and through us, those planets are all also somewhere. They're in a house, in a sign. And these planets being the core personalities, the living spheres and beings in our solar system we're reflecting, those are the verbs. They're the active energies. And if you know your gods and goddesses, they each want different things. Venus is going to resonate with Aphrodite, love and beauty, and she attracts things like a magnet and pulls them in. And then you've got Mercury, the messenger god, the information station, and he likes to flip flit around and zip zap around and go back and forth like a hummingbird and be inquisitive and communicative and all of those things. And so those organs behave according to their nature, but they're wearing a costume. They're wearing a sign that they're in. And so Venus is always love and beauty. But if she's hanging out with someone like Virgo, she might love things that are very prim and proper and together and, calculated, methodical. But if she's floating around wearing Aquarius, she might things that are radical, exotic, weird, funky. So it depends on who they're wearing. And then what house they're in is kind of like what area of your life that archetype is predominantly gravitated. Where do you have the most concentration of that particular theme and archetype in that particular mode? Also, it's timings within timings and seasons and cycles within seasons and cycles. And so the planets are all in a certain sign in a house in your life, expressing through all the stories that are coming through. The last part, or well, there's endless parts, but the last of these four biggies are the lines that we all see, the red and blue lines, and sometimes the occasional green line and minor stuff. But in general, the lines are called aspects, and they represent geometrical connections between the planets. Are planets about 90 degrees apart, about 120 degrees apart, 180 directly across the table? Maybe a 60-degree close by. So all of the different angles reflect conversations between the planets. And some conversations are light and fluffy and easy to get along, and some are a little bit more catalyzing and stimulating and challenging. And so they're not good or bad. It's really, we can think of yin and yang. And the different conversations even reflect certain archetypes that certain planets express in and of their core nature too. But it's just a robust sense of conversation so that those lines or aspect we think of like the adverbs. They modify the verbs. So a good example would be if Venus is in touch with Mars, she might be really active or sporty or aggressive and assertive and all of these kind of yang forward qualities. If she's talking maybe to a planet like Saturn, she might be a little bit more cool and reserved and really looking for things that show it's worthwhile to stand the test of time. So her composure and her behavior would be different according to who else she's having a conversation with. So that sets up what this picture is and how it's read in terms of the 12 departments with the signs all spun around them. The planets are all in a particular sign and house, and they're having conversation. So when I jokingly say I'm reading a chart, it is like reading all these parts of speech between nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Um, and that opens the door to tell the story. And in this story, it looks like Miss Andrea, you are no, a Libra.
Libra.
If someone says, "What's your sign?" you would answer Libra because the sun was in Libra. And when someone pigeonholes and says, "What sign are you?" we're talking about the sun sign, and that changes about every month. Every 30 days, the sun is in a new sign. And the sun is the biggest, brightest thing in our solar system. It's like the heart of the solar being, which is not an accident. The solar being is soul nature, the radiant, it's the reflection of that core light that we are. And so it reflects how we want to shine, be seen, and express ourselves in this light. It's the core of our nature and how we want to be seen. So it does have the most to say about our identity. In Libra, Libra is a sign. The first curious feature is it's inherently about partnership. Libra is about others, and Libra offers a view where we see who we are through all of the relationships where we weigh, compare, and contrast what's the same and what's different between ourselves and others. And it puts us into a lot of social situations. We're going to initiate things socially. It's an important aspect of life. Libra also embodies the archetypes of fairness, of justice, of honesty. I jokingly say Libra holds the secret of mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. It is both the sense of truth and justice and beauty, and how when things are balanced and harmonized and complementary, they're balanced in a way that is beautiful, and that symmetry and all of those qualities of aesthetic are part of this. And it's the diplomat of the zodiac. It's how to initiate conversations and social connections with other people one on one for that sense of social collaboration, truth, justice, etc. So that's going to have a lot to say about you, and how you want to show up and be seen. It's a lot of the social justice aspect of things, fairness, diplomacy, and the people that know and watch you that know your history and stuff. So I invite, people can think about how that's relevant with the roles that you've had being a diplomat, between different organizations and different capacities and all of that. Um, the other thing, we're going to talk about Libra more and more because if you notice, your Sun, Pluto, Mercury, and Uranus are all there. So you have a whole, what we call a stellium, a whole grouping in that sign, which means you have a lot of planetary ambassadors that are saturating you with these lessons from different perspectives. So it's important for you to shine in that realm. While doing a lot of things that are, I mean, around, articulation, communication, the mercurial aspects, social justice, again, liberation, freedom, avant-garde, all of the weird, wacky ET, all of that is wrapped up in the planet Uranus, which files with Aquarius, those energies together. Um, and then that depth of Pluto there, I mean, it's you got a lot of deep energies in that Libra zone to talk about. And Mars is close by. He's in the mix, but Mars is in Virgo. We'll talk about that difference in a minute. But this whole pocket is also living in your eighth house. So when I talk about someone's sign, and their sun it's important. I think about your sun is working in Scorpio's house. The eighth house reflects the eighth archetype, Scorpio. And so even though you are Libra, you're working this whole lifetime. The department that you have a lot of work, all of these planets' gravity here, is Scorpio's house. Scorpio is like the basement of the zodiac. It's the deep, dark underground of hidden things. It's investigation, research. It's the occult. It's the deeper side of relationships. If we think about Libra being how we socially interface and make pleasant and fair with others for initiating. It's kind of like putting our best face forward. Scorpio is once we've gotten deeper in relationships and it's no longer you and me and you and me, it's us. And so the shared relationships and the entanglements, the deep connections that range from the ride or die intimacies we have with people we're very close to and the karmic relationships that are um, power imbalances between often like someone in positions of power and then people being abused by positions of power. I imagine all of those themes are going to be ripe in your life, even though you might say, well, I'm not a Scorpio. What's Scorpio have to do with me? And you don't even have a planet in Scorpio. You're working and living this lifetime in Scorpio's house. And so it also, so if we think about Libra being the social front of house face to things, your lifetime invites you to a lot of social interactions where you dig and penetrate down beneath to see what's under those, the hidden levels of social interactions and the underside of social niceties, and just the sense of hidden relationships, the deeper side of relationships and all the power balances and imbalances that are entailed in that. That's a huge part of this story of radically fighting to transform how people think about and see relationships and balance them. And it's huge, huge part of this lifetime. Um, so that's starting out with the sun and peeling out a little bit more. If the sun is that core essential self of us, the sun is often balanced with the moon, and the sun representing how we want to shine and be seen is comparative to the moon, which needs to feel secure. So it's like wants and needs. Our sun is like wanting to shine and be pleasant and da 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 da. And then what do we need? We need with this situation with Moon in Gemini, you're going to need a lot of mental conversation, analysis, flexibility, adaptability, something that is related to the world of Gemini. So Moon is in Gemini. First fun feature to note, they're both air signs, and air signs are already bridging all three of your core, what I call the Holy Trinity, the sun, the moon, and the ascending sign, um, are in air. And air is all about our mental nature, our communicative nature, and our social nature. So you are so here to express the circulation of information and social connections just through everything you do. I hope it's ripely abundant for you because I can see it. I mean, through the podcast you do, through the things you've done in the collegiate environment, like just all of it is just mental, intellectual, social discourse.
Now, I guess
And
we have
this
history, proving what you're
this
analyzing
is
here. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
you have with Moon as need, and Gemini to know, you have a need to know.
I love
With everything, just that need to know, and you inquire. Gemini, we want to talk a little bit about who Gemini is. It's the post office of the zodiac. It's all themes of information, communication, writing. It's uh it's the alphabet of everything. It's that which takes anything and dissects it. It's the twins, so it's how everything is a world of duality, polarity. We're looking at the yin, we're looking at the yang, the left and the right, and it's dissecting and analyzing everything. And this is a good time to point out how opposite signs reflect an axis. So analysis is down here in Gemini land, opposite synthesis, where we put things together into bigger wholes in Sagittarius. Um, and with a quick rewind, with your sun in Libra, the opposite point of Earth is featured in Aries that says you shine in that realm of Libra and navigating the niceties of social, interactions and collaborations with a lot of focus on you doing you, you being independent, you being able to stand as a party of one, because that's the dharma of the earth in Aries for you. So there's a huge social, pleasant, diplomatic bent to your life, but there is a work that the way that you navigate the finesse of balancing all of your relationships with people affords you the luxury of independence to do what you want the way that you want, is how that kind of would story. Um, but then into the moon in Gemini again, need for conversation, need to know, need to learn, this is also a need for variety. In some sense, learning a little. I mean, it's a jack of all trades energy that is interested in a little bit of everything. And then the way that we communicate these things. It is super close to Saturn. And when we have planets that are super close, and we'll talk again about Sun being super close to Pluto, they merge. Those themes kind of blend together. And it's worth pointing out with your sun so close to Pluto, Pluto, which is Hades, god of the underworld, is a planet that aligns with Scorpio, very scorpionic. It's another spice in your mix that makes you a deeper, more accustomed to the hidden dimensions of life kind of person than what the typical Libra smiley front of house presentation is typically. It deepens because we think of it, in general, Libra is the superficial surface, and Scorpio is digging underneath the bottom of that. And think about how those themes interweave in your life. Um, an interweaving down here with Moon and Saturn. Both of these planets have representations of the past. Um, the Moon is kind of a recent past, and the Saturn energy is kind of like a hardened, crystallized past. And there's some way that in this lifetime, they're both there. And there's going to be a familiarity for you in the sense of being analytical, of dissecting, of doing all this, of knowing, of inquiring, of asking good questions, of, all of your mental capabilities and apparatuses, extremely important. Saturn brings a quality in that often earlier in life, we can sometimes feel like it is blocked or inhibited, or we're insecure about it. But the irony is that as we mature and work into later life, it becomes something we master and we're the authority regarding. And so you can contemplate how that could factor for you when it comes to themes of either where you told you weren't smart enough as a kid, or you didn't learn quick enough, or or it could be something about movement, or not being able to say things, or feeling like you said things the wrong way, or some issue with communication that made communication super important for you, so that you worked on and mastered it to a way that you've gotten to a place that you can finesse that better than most. It's that kind of it's what drives us with a sense of ambition in life to prove and to show that we can climb the mountain. Um, and so it has a sense of this has a sense too of you work. I mean, this is a kind of funny thing because you don't work for the government, even though in some ways you have, and depends on how we stretch the metaphor and what government, but the familiarity with government structures and just the things that have been established and held held the test of time. Those things that have held the test of time are familiar, and you being able to navigate a system and kind of play by the rules of whatever the intellectual chessboard territory is something that you have probably been ingrained with since a young time. How to play mental chess, if you will, when it comes to communication and deduction and reasoning. And a lot of these faculties that we're both aware seem to be fading out of fashion with so many of the population. You've had forces, and this could also, the Saturn vibe often has a father paternal energy that was, something that really helped to discipline and structure you from early life, your infancy, your early home is the moon, that you had a lot of structuring components when it came to maybe speaking well or communicating well and learning and valuing those things and feeling like you can figure it out. There's something that implies a merging of that. So and it has the effect sometimes of potentially making your emotional body a little bit more cool and reserved. Not like, oh, like warm and flashy, but in a sense of more composure to things that has a thoughtfulness. It slows down this fast pace of Gemini to really think about how we're putting puzzle pieces together, what we're saying, how things fit, all of those themes. Um, and these energies live, this little duo is in your fifth house. And the fifth house is the Leo house. I jokingly call it the fun box because Leo rules fun. And it's all kinds of creativity. So it's entertainment, it's fun, it's creativity, it's children to the extent that children are a mark of our creativity. Um, and this feature, Saturn in the fifth house, is often a feature, and I don't know for sure, but I feel like I know. I don't think you have kids.
Nope.
It often says
Nope.
no to kids, or it says one or few. You don't find Saturn in the fifth house in like a family of 10 kids, It's very few or one, or it can be a marker that if you have that kid, it's later in life. But often Saturn is a planet that says no. The same way that when we talk about Jupiter, he's a planet that says yes.
Oh,
But this is a no planet. Um, and it also has things to do with our career and ambition. It's a structuring, disciplining, concentrating agent. And the moon is our early life molding and memory and family and home and mom. And so there's something that, again, you had a lot, it could have been a conservative, traditional upbringing. There could be limitation or scarcity, or just, we didn't spend money on frills, or it was very, needs and structure. And it has the effect of making you a more cool, reserved, conservative with your emotional output and how you logically, cautiously think about things, especially in an emotional regard. You're going to have a knack for um, really thinking through and analyzing your emotional situations, and probably also really needing, like, we're gonna talk. I have a feeling that something about this Venus over here you've got really tuned in is Ika in the mix, or is part of the theme of Ika, um, because you've got a lot of relationship energies that would support what I would think is like needing to communicate your emotions. With Moon and Gemini, you need to talk, need to communicate, and that's something that you would need in your partners. And it's why you interact with all the characters you do. You need the conversations for the compare and contrast that your identity is exploring through the Libra archetype. And Moon in Gemini supports that. It needs the talking, it needs the conversations and holding space for that. So that's a big part of the moon. Um, the third part in this Holy Trinity at the party is your ascending sign. And we also can think about the planets like hands on a clock. Some move faster than others, like the moon gets all the way around every 28 days, the sun takes 360 days, and then they're slower. Well, the fastest hand is this ascendant. It changes every 2 hours, so it's the most personably notable feature of our identity, and it starts the cusp of the first house And the first house is the Aries department. And Aries about me, myself, and I, my independent identity. So it has a lot to say about who we are also. It's how we put ourselves forward, how we step out into initiating things. It's Aquarius for you. Um, which is the rebel, the revolutionary, the weird one, the wacky, unusual, the social justice person. It's all things that are technological, avant-garde, all of that. That's in the theme of who Aquarius is. And so the way that you would initiate or put yourself forward is often going to be, it's got such a paradox that it can be really strong with group movement when it's a group of like-minded energy, but it can also be the black sheep rebel that rebels against a group movement and strikes out individually on its own. You're going to have a tendency towards both with Aquarius being in that regard. So you don't mind letting your freak flag fly and being as weird and wacky and unusual as you authentically are, and you are drawn to the collaborations and the group experiences and the social collectives that represent those elevating, progressive, futuristic movements that are awakening and enlivening and all of those Aquarian components. This particular spot is also directly in trine, in tune about at 120 degrees, it just didn't draw the blue line, with your sun, which gives you an immense forward momentum with your identity. And Pluto is there too. It gives you an extra, I mean, this little combo tied into that gives you a really strong willpower. You really do. You are I remember reading or listening to something to remembering you've got a thing for the archetype of like the Valkyrie, if you will. You didn't say Valkyrie, but like the strong female Wonder Woman warrior that's in a sense it would be like the goddess Artemis or Diana, the protectress of, children and women, and the virgin goddess, you can't fuck with me, kind of all of that vibe. Um, some of the you've got a tendency to just say that you've got that we're not going to take it anymore rebel to you in a beautiful, fair, pleasant, harmonious front of house face way through Libra that's also very stern and staunch and serious with the moon Saturn demeanor within. So all of these features, and it's also it rings of Athena, the goddess Athena, and another virgin goddess, the warrior goddess. Like I see those archetypes very right for you through this. That gives you just a strong willpower and a strong sense of presence to kind of say like what cause is worth you fighting for and what cause you don't give anything about. And it's that radical nature that you push forward through. Um, also, I'm not going to talk about where the planets are now connected to who you are, but I will say that it's a big deal that the energy of Pluto is coming over your ascendant. You got some big stuff transforming for you around, this time zip code too, personally. So we'll look at that. Good stuff, big transformations. And it's in tune again with where your sun is because that spot is lined up already. So as it crosses it, it lines up too. Um, but diving deeper, past your Holy Trinity, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, Mercury is the closest planet. And I say he stays so close to the Sun, our Mercury sign is either the same as our Sun sign, or it's the one before or after. Very rarely is it two away, but we'd have to be like at the edge already of one, then maybe he's at the edge two away. But generally, Mercury's hanging out close to the Sun. We don't notice a lot of difference with Mercury when it's in the same sun because it's going to somebody speaks and thinks the same way they present. So if you present like Libra, you also think a lot like Libra in terms of fairness, diplomacy, balance. All of those qualities are worked into how you articulate, communicate. It's going to embody a sense of grace How can I be graceful in this in some way? Although there's always a twist and a paradox, and your Mercury is hanging out super close to weird and wacky Uranus, who belongs to that Aquarius energy. And because of that, your mind and your thinking that is graceful and beautiful and balanced in these Libra qualities, dipped in Libra, um, is open to being a little bit more radical, wild, crazy, like something outside the box about it, while still trying to keep the pleasant harmony composed. But there's something that's a little bit more open to the strangeness. It also, as a higher octave of Mercury, in a sense, if Mercury is our personal, smaller mental mind and apparatus, Uranus is this further out, higher mind, collective mind. And when it's so close to Mercury, um, besides the theme of like sudden ideas and changes of mind and thinking unusual, avant-garde scientific ways, it also can make it so that you are gosh, what, it just floated right out there with it. Maybe it's mixed up in that keyword soup. Um, but it's going to make the mind. Oh, there we go. Not to blow smoke, but brilliant. It's a factor where we have those weird, intuitive, electric thoughts all of a sudden. And so, in whatever field you're in, that idea of that aha moment, the lightning bolt, the flash, a flash on, a flash to mind, that's ripened by having those in close conjunction. I'll also pitch in that Uranus and Aquarius energies about these new scientific and quantum and it's everything teleport, telepath. Those energies are part of that package too, and having that so close to that with someone with other inclinations. The idea of telepathy implied. It's an implication that does that mean that everybody with Mercury near Uranus is familiar with telepathy? Not exactly. Maybe they have a lot of car accidents or like a lot of weird, wacky, it can do those things. So it's all relative to how we're weaving our consciousness. And so I'm just pointing out some things that show up as the relevance for who and how your journey has expressed. So the Mercury nature in the same sign as the sun, with the extra splash of the Uranian influence that gives it more of an electric charge that's open to being wild and wacky and unusual, the same way your core identity steps forward through that Aquarius ascendant. So all that's in the picture. The next pairing is one that everybody usually likes to talk about and is familiar with. We hear men are from Mars and women are from
Oh,
Venus.
yeah.
Um, and this is the good juicy stuff, right? This is both of those planets are really where we bridge our social, we're stepping out from our core sense of who we are, that sun, moon, Mercury, to our interactions with others. In fact, Venus is love and beauty. It is that sense of what we find attractive and value. She's our value girl. And what we value we spend our money on the things that we have a taste for, and we enjoy having complementary as the others that we keep in our life. We find them attractive. And so she's that social gal. She's that social energy of desire. Mars is a desire that comes from within ourselves that we have a burning kind of thrust to go get. Mars is how you go after what you desire, and Venus is how you magnetize it, seduce it, attract it, bring it to you. And so they're both features of our relationships. And without, everybody's a composite, but classically, men represent the archetype of the Mars, and women may see the Mars in the male figures more classically in the, heteronormative everything. And Venus is indicative of the females of our life. Although technically Venus also, she rules relationships. So she has the most to say about our relationship style. And for you, you have Venus in Leo hanging out in the seventh house, which is the seventh sign Libra, which is her home sign. So you have Venus operating in her home house in your lifetime, and she is loud and large and in charge in Leo. Leo has a bold, playful, fun sense of presence. And if you see, all her conversations are blue lines, and people that know astrology usually like the blue lines because they're easy, that people think of them being good. It's not that the blue is good and red is bad, but it's an easy flow versus challenging, stimulating sometimes, but you really need some of both. But your Venus is quite nicely positioned in tune with all these conversations. Let's talk about her first, though. She values fun, play, creativity, and big sense of, this is going to sound maybe contradictory and ironic a little, but big egos. People that are showboats in some way, that show up in a bigger, louder, larger than life way. Those characters are attractive in some respect in your life. And you will pull in energies that represent something about that shine, radiate, show out loud sense. And it's got like a playful, fun kind of spirit with Leo. It is also going to say that you value relationships quite a bit. And this is quite interesting. You know, in a sense, I kind of think of you a little bit like a hermit up there in the snow, on your farm and everything. So it's like quite an irony. Like you're not what we would say is maybe the social butterfly in the classic sense of going to lots of parties or, bar hopping or anything like that. But the social relationships in your life that are fun and light and carefree and all of that are extremely valued too. That's what you value. And those characters in your life that you choose, that you find attractive, you choose to partner with, that complement you, um, they're going to be, in it to win it. That is something that you value. I think that just everything that I've heard and kind of get about, the soul connection with Ika and all, cast him as that character. And in our life, whoop, flashing back. Um, in our life, our partner, when someone has a partner, because when I do readings, I ask, do you have a partner right now or not? Because guess what? If you don't have a partner and you don't want one, you don't have to. But if you do have a partner, these themes will show up in them. And even when you had different partners, those same themes will fit in different ways. And they represent things um, that we draw and attract in that realm anyway. But when we do have somebody, they fit in the Cinderella slipper somehow. So you can think about the ways that Ika makes a very balanced partner for you in some way that keeps that playful spirit of fun and creativity alive in relationship. And then that extends, this is also the social discourse with everybody. That's something you aspire to bring to the table with and through all of the others in your life, those qualities. Leo also has a commanding sense. It's one of those energies that's again not afraid to stand out, to stand up, all of those types of bold, sometimes domineering qualities. And so you appreciate those figures that will stand up bold. It's the sign that's to reveal. The same way Scorpio hides and it's the hidden underground in the dark. Leo is the sign ruled by the sun. It's revealing and showing. So you really love and value and are attracted to when people reveal themselves and they're not hiding behind something. The bold revelations of others is one of those attractive features.
It's so
Let's
funny
talk about her cons.
because it's,
Go ahead.
I hate to, I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on such like an amazing like magnetic role, and I love the
Step
way
in anytime.
it's, but your way of describing, this is the first time I've ever like worked, played around with astrology where it actually makes sense for me, the way you describe everything, the way you make the connections. It's like for some reason it works with my, and that's really all it is. For some reason it works with my brain. And I'm sure, I'm hopefully in the comments, folks will be able to be like, oh, they have these like eureka moments where they're like, wow, okay, now I get
Well,
this. So, but
something fascinating. Oh, go ahead. There's
I
so
was gonna say,
much.
well, Semyasi definitely feels that role for
Good
relationships.
friend.
She's a
Yeah.
she is just, an off the wall, bouncy, in your face, like total like cliche girlfriend, loves clothes, all that. But I always, well, when Eke and I are together, I always call him my master because I need a man who can control me, and that's something we've been doing through generations. So I do call him that. It's like he's my master. He likes that role. It feeds his ego, and it's so that's
And
interesting.
even I'd even imagine, even though he can master like the proud lion of a pack, with the Venus, I could imagine he still expresses a softer side. The softer side of things is represented in Venus. And so that softing side is like that youthful, creative playfulness that is in that sense of just revealing who you are. Like Venus in Leo is just extremely warm. And yes, it's extreme. I mean, Sanjase expresses that archetype extremely well from everything I've heard and read about
Oh,
her. So
yeah.
that is being like a tag as like that type as a bestie in your life is perfectly apropos in this design. Um, and you just remarking on how you're able to hear these connections as I'm talking about it. I think the same way you can have a good or a bad doctor or a good or a bad mechanic or whatever that you talk to. There's different people that have different lenses and abilities to articulate, and I try to find ways to share some of the jargon of the planets and signs, but then I'm really pulling in all the key words that are just archetypes and themes that we know in our life, and it allows, I'm sure people in the comments will be able, if they know anything about a planet or a planet in a sign, it's the same as them, they might get something from hearing me describe that theme themselves because more than one person can plug in. It's the same thing that I've witnessed when I've attended group readings, like, group mediumship, for example.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
fascinating how, out of a group of 10, maybe someone's like, I want to talk about the person who died on a plane, and then like two people stand up, and then they dial it in. Their name started with a J, so the message was really for this person, but it has something the other person is taking, and then the whole group is getting something from it too. So
absolutely. Yeah.
it's such a it's a collective process.
Yeah, sure,
So
sure. Actually, yeah. It's because it's so different from tarot reading, which is for me fully intuitive. This is
this is based on the mapping. This is
right.
like map reading. It's a map of the soul and how our incarnation and karmic pathways, and how it's swirling and evolving. Because we're talking about the base layer of who you are. Just for a fun fact, extension wise, all the planets on this blue level, this is where the planets are today. And so where they line up with things talks about different seasons and cycles of change in your life. We can also look at a birthday for a person and get an idea of the story for the upcoming year. And like I shared, if you have a relationship, you can take two charts and overlap them and see how they talk together, or how, if you melt them into one, the relationship has its own unique tone, and you can talk about that. So there's so many ways to fly this kite, and we're just getting this is the introduction to the cast and characters, and the environment. So we talked about Venus, all of that pleasant energy. She's tuned in nicely to Mercury, which again allows you quite the artful finesse in communication. Articulation, communication, writing, talking, all of that favored. Venus is also plugging in nicely with your emotional body and Saturn. So by virtue of Saturn, it kind of Saturn has a cooling, calming, crystallizing effect so that again your emotional body has that cooling, reserved nature, and your love desire body is more of that conservative, things that matter, worthwhile, stand the test of time vibe. It's also nice that Venus is just in tune with what you call it, Jupiter. Jupiter over here is still in a loose trine, and this is touching this planet of love and beauty and ease, and she's one of the good characters everybody loves because it's she's love. in tune with Jupiter, who's the planet that says yes, opportunity, abundance, growth. And so this feeds a lot of good fortune into your relationships. It feeds a sense of expansion, open-minded, philosophical flair, all of those qualities of Jupiter for expansion, growth, openness are infused in a sense through your relationship. And since it's this 11th house, it's your friends and the groups and the people that you collaborate with, that like-minded community of friends that you choose, the family that you choose is is that warm, heart-filled melting pot of your love, nature, and desire. So Jupiter flowing into Venus is always a good, robust marker in relationships for a lot of good stuff. So you have a well-positioned Venus in that regard for your relationships. Mars is another aspect of the story that represents the more yang side of things. And it's your desire and it's how you go and get it. So you're drawing things in with the fun and the light and the playful. Um, you like to be a little bit more organized when it comes to how you take action, how you put things together and move forward. And Virgo has a lot to say about a process to the progress and having an order of operations to when it's like if Mars represents the military, police, firefighting, all of that, your militant nature is very regimented by the book. Have a plan is the way that you take action. It has that Artemis, Diana sense of warrior, and that we're going to have everything fine tuned. Everything is well equipped, and all of the details have been ironed out. That's a lot of how you fight, how you fiercely take action, and how you go after what you desire. You also, if this represents the male side or like the rugged masculine, you're gonna like the side of a guy that is quote unquote together. You like someone who's very together, tidy, trim, put together, articulate, all of the things that show that they care about having everything fine-tuned and dialed in. So there's something to that that creates you having your set way of putting things together. Um, and sometimes that can be an area in general where Mars is the god of war, where you might run into some altercations with people or butt heads about the way that you do things, or the set rules and regiments and how it works for you when it doesn't work for others. Because you can be very type A about, I know how it works and this is how I get it done. And there's that fierceness that you also secretly really like in other people. Like Ika, like when you said, like, ooh, commanding. You like that domineering. I'm the commander here. I'm the captain. I'll be giving the orders today. But that is also secretly low key a big part of you. You are that Valkyrie warrior princess that like I have it together. This is how I do it. And so someone that can challenge you has to be coming at it with a mental intellectual side because you're all air. You've got so much of that happening. And even Virgo is also ruled by Mercury. It's a mental practicality. So someone the guy or the energy that's a good match for you, a challenger, because we think about with fighting and fucking with Mars, it really is. It's like the passion energy and the war energy. Someone that can tell you what to do has to have it together in a way that can actually make analytical sense where, ooh, you might have a better idea. Oh, that could be something good to implement and utilize. So that's the kind of thing that you like someone bringing to the table because you're so fierce with bringing that to the table yourself. So you like to have all those ducks in a row and be the fierce fine-tuned one, and you might appreciate the other person being louder, being in the spotlight. You can stand in the spotlight. I want someone to stand and shout the orders. I want to be the one to check them off and critique and make sure everything's good. And if you can double check me and see something I missed, ooh, I'm gonna like you even more. That's a little bit of the relational energy that would be a story you'll see in the partners and one-on-one characters that mean something to your life. And that you loosely will see happening in all the varieties of interactions. The way that you wrestle through the tedium and fastidious details of organization and this person getting their way or you getting your way, and all those nuances are wrapped up in these stories of socializing and your power imbalances, etc. Because this is like this is a good 75-80% of the work you're doing is through your relationships. These two places, seventh and eighth house, Libra, Scorpio themes, you're here to work through relationships. And it's fun to point out just for the heritage history of it all. You think about the signs, there was some morphing in the zodiac and the way that the Lion of Leo blends into the Virgo Virgin. There aren't any lines in the sky that divide these archetypes. We just had to talk about the whole, and so we found different divisions. Let's talk about two forces. What about four elements? What about 3 by 4? Different ways to cut the pie. And so at a point, the theme of the Sphinx is represented in that Leo lion, Virgo virgin cusp. That area is very sphinxy, if you will. And there's a star hanging out there, a lot of stuff in the lore about stuff happening with it. But in that you've got that point that would um put you in contact with sphinxy people. You like the people that offer a riddle worth solving and are very riddle capable themselves. Also, with the relational aspects of the Libra Scorpio, Scorpio has two claws, and the claws over time became kind of something separate, I've heard, from the two scales. So we can think about the two scales that weigh eventually became or phased in and blended between those two claws. And so we weigh and assess our relationships, getting the heart as light as a feather, and then those relationships in a perfect balance and harmony integrate into that shared deeper underground merged space that Scorpio's intimacy entails. So you have a lot that you're unpacking in this lifetime through the relationships. The people you choose to do business with, very important. And in this lifetime, I know of your story, and it's loudly evident here, the people you've been forced to play with in this lifetime. And I bring that up because anytime we see these two planets, Mars and Pluto, hanging out or across the table or square, when they're in a real spicy conversation, the person is often accustomed in this lifetime to something in the record that involves abuse of power themes. That there's somewhere in the record characters that have held positions of authority that have been abusive with their power. And so people that have to deal with that in this lifetime, it can be physical violence, sexual violence, all sorts of things that are representative of the underworld and that the deep, dark, hidden terrain, and then it's volcanically fired up. You're merging the god of like Hades, the underworld, death, darkness, all of that taboo, and Mars, god of war, fighting, violence. And so when they get together, there's often something that shines that. And in these lifetimes, people have a soul choice as the consciousness develops, and you can kind of tell what people choose by how the story continues. Sometimes people with Mars, Pluto stuff are perpetual victims forever. That energy echoes throughout, and they continue to find situations where they're the weak damsel in distress or helpless victim, and other people are constantly taking advantage of them. Sometimes they say, screw that, I'm not going to take that anymore. I'm going to be the abuser first. I'm going to be the villain. I'm going to be the tyrant. I'm going to be the evil queen. You're not going to do that to me. I'm going to do it first. Revenge, retribution, all of that. And then sometimes there is the social justice shaman champion, which is where someone becomes a force that is willing to fight and stand for those that have been abused or subject to the injustice of others. And so that's another dimension that evolves for someone because often earlier in life or early life situations have taught them how to vigilantly watch out and spot those danger signals of abusive, manipulative, shadowy, whatever, so that they can help unentangle other people from them, to help them fight for themselves. And it's a theme of power. This whole eighth house Scorpio archetype, power struggles, power imbalances. And we have to get in control of our own power. We take control of our power back by canceling any contracts with people where we are subservient under their power or where we try to have power over people. It's control things where we learn that by controlling ourselves, we do the best service for all so that, we learn that you can't control anybody else, and being controlled by others is just as damaging. So it's all these control themes that this lifetime is giving you a wrestle with, to karmically kind of hash out where you're going to draw the line, who you're going to play nice with, and who you're going to cut out and weigh and assess to, not a value, not do business with. So life has had you doing business with all sorts of characters while you weed your garden of the relationships that do not serve, are not essential, and then you deepen and enrich the ones that are. That's wrapped up in this story. Um, it also is going to indicate this Mars square Pluto tying in with the Saturn and the Moon. This is just, I feel like this is part of a signature in a chart, that we're going to talk about briefly, but to point the walk-in time and the change that transition could be seen in this chart, because we're going from the birth and this incarnation, and then that was a big timing event here in the incarnation. This chart, though, with those planets Mars and Pluto square that early life moon factor, does kind of say that, hey, this Andrea Martin lifetime is set up to include something rather volatile early on for you to grow through. And I know, and I tell people all the time, how do you wrestle with those deep taboo issues like abuse and violence and all of that? Because nobody would say, no one's going to say, I chose that. And to a degree, I get it. From our conscious personality, nobody chooses any of those experiences. But from a soul perspective, I kind of see a view where there are experiences one may not order off the menu. We wouldn't, order that, but that we agree to walk through. Okay, that looks like, that's quite a doozy. That's really going to be a safari. I don't know about that. That we choose to deal with so that we can extract a certain lesson or get some fuel or a catalyst to springboard some kind of evolution and growth. And so that's how I have people try to digest and assimilate and integrate some of those experiences that can be profound. Because if you get lost in them or you can't let go of them, that's what creates the perpetual victim or the abuser tyrant response. You have to be able to integrate, and the whole language of astrology is about making something whole, holy. It's all one whole. So integrating those parts. And so that's how I kind of paint the picture, knowing that you did have one hell of a ride early on that would not be anything anyone would order off the menu.
Well, the thing
So,
though, with for people who are and I don't know outside of the envoy, I don't know for people who aren't envoys. That this is obviously that's our channel anyway for star seeds and envoys. But um it was on the menu, and we knew about this before we came in. Well, everybody did, because if you're going to end, I mean, it's just common sense, right? It's not even about what we're talking about, but if you're going to go into a war zone as a combatant, you know, and
You
you
know what you're signing up for.
that's what you know it isn't going to be ice cream cones, right? I mean, it's like
Yes.
so for the ETs that did it, and those of us who are the envoys and starseeds who were basically spies, moles, in order to go through these different experiences in what we call programs, right? So it could be SRA, SSP, whatever, MyLab, you name it, all the same shit, right? So
Mhm.
people knew that you were prepared for that before you came in. Now, I mean, I don't think anybody can walk into a combat situation lightly. You know, you're going to come out with scars. It is what it is. But um, war is always dirty. So, and I think that you just fully peeled all the layers off the complexity of the combatants that came in here, which we call envoys, but you're the enemy combatant to the rulers of this planet. And what they did was choose which department, it could be Dark Fleet, it could be my lab, whatever, that they were likely going to be experiencing, because nothing's written in stone. What they experienced there was then transmitted back to the Alliance Federation so that they could have a full understanding of what exactly was going on to the beings on this planet, oftentimes directly through the eyes of someone who was working as a super soldier or something like that. They're seeing that. Now you make a great point. The thing is, it's the person's choice to either become evil to jump, basically turn Sith. That can happen. People jump sides in wars, so that's a choice. It's also a person's choice to remain a victim, to simply continue stewing, giving over their power to the evil, and if you want to give over your power to these evil perpetrators, they will certainly shake your hand and take you up on the offer, and your life's going to suck. And I tell people that all the time. You know, if you don't fight back, if you don't take your sovereignty back to these different operatives in these programs, they will kill you, you know. And here you go. It literally described to a T the different types of scenarios, circumstances, and agendas that the envoys were placed in. And no matter, I don't care how prepared you are in the war zone, ultimately what happens is up to the gods or whatever you want to call it, you know, and up to your choices. So there you go. I mean, that's exactly what,
But
yeah.
look at how these archetypes put together because you can see this. I look at, I mean, I've been studying my chart since things turned on for me again around 2012, and I see new things all the time. So think about the idea. So Pluto is hidden, underground shadow, and Mars is god of war. You have literally come in for hidden warfare, the idea of this hidden war behind the scenes, all of that, the degree of interaction and business that you're doing behind the scenes in that hidden war. And if Mars is the key planet that ties into war, I mean, it just is. Look at its conversations. I gave you lots of good stuff about your Venus and how all those nice, easy blue lines, and you really did come in blessed with good friends and partners. Your friends and partners and the people on your side, that's the immaculate, like, yes factor. And you are here for that big collective change. But your Mars is sitting next to Pluto, I just described, a very intense conversation. And it is square Jupiter and square your moon Saturn. It's all red lines. Those squares are stimulating energies that challenge and catalyze, kind of like that little thing that sits on the desk I'm imitating. It's that idea of friction that is feisty, and that feisty friction is happening with your organ of thrust, determination, passion, war, vigor. You came as a warrior. You came. The reason you identify with that archetype of the Valkyrie, of Athena, of the Artemis, those and that's a huge part of who you are at a soul level. You're doing it and you want to make it, you're fighting for justice and fairness and beauty in the sense of truth. Because you know, it's so funny. Truth is beauty. It's
Yeah.
only when things like where you get in all the black magic bullshit is where you get the hideous monsters and all the distortions and shadows that aren't so pretty underneath it all is because it's so distorted because the truth is balanced and symmetrical and beautiful and harmonious. It's all those things. And you're fighting in that sense. So that Mars, besides that intense Pluto connection that's showing you the underside of how deep down the abyss can be, your Jupiter conversation really pushes you forward. It's what gives you the mission. It's what gives you the yes, the opportunity. It is, in a sense, the carrot at the end of the stick. Being tied in with Neptune does a little bit of that glamour too, but it gives you a sense of, yes, I can, and the sense of taking on more, sometimes taking on too much. When we have the abundance of Jupiter squaring into Mars, it's like I can do it and I'm doing everything and lots of different sticks in the fire. You burn a whole lot, but it gives you a whole lot of oomph factor to do and charge and all of those things. With the square to the moon, that the moon it highlights your feisty nature. You are not the soft, gentle, passive, lay back and you tell me what to do kind of girl. With Mars charging in with that. And then the other factor, Mars square Saturn is also super tough, similar to Mars sitting next to Pluto. Pluto is the deep, dark underside, occult dimensions of such. Saturn is, fun fact, the 2020 shit show astrologically was well timed because Saturn and Pluto, two dark forces, were together at a very unique spot in Capricorn. But so this it's another dark character, but Saturn's darkness is like a solid wall, and it is the sense of restriction, limitation, inhibition, and it's a blocking force. It gives you have several things that sing a story of an indomitable will. Like you have such a strong willpower and an ability to push when somebody else won't, all of that fierceness that will sometimes push you against authority figures. You are not just one that listens and takes orders. And so it's kind of part of the irony of you working in that Galactic Federation military space, even with that, the most noble, like warrior for a good cause energy. You're the warrior for a good cause that's going to question bad orders, that's going to question authority figures or the way it's always been or whatever the case is. Um, because Mars, that fierce, I keep opening it, is going to question the standard. Saturn is the standard, the rule, the authority, and your Mars is very strongly cares about it a lot, but will challenge it and push it to change. And then you'll find that certain authorities or rules and structures we're all I joke all the time that we're all handling something or someone under us that needs some management and we're all being handled. Well, you at the same way that you will buck bad handling, there are levels of structure and rules and obeyance and handling and management that still has a way of confining and disciplining. The positive aspect is disciplining how you go about fighting, how you push your willpower, your vigor, and all that. And so it really helps to fortify. They work together. So it fortifies your sense of willpower, stamina with determination and endurance. So there's a lot of positive quality. There's nothing good or bad. Some people would say, "Oh no, Mars square Saturn, horrible, horrible things." Well, yeah, some of it's not a bed of roses, but they all have their gifts. And so it really sharpens the metal of how fight or charge. It gives a little bit more caution to the strategy. So that gives a little bit about Mars. By the time I've gotten to Mars, usually all the planets have gotten talked about, and it's a good point to focus on what's called the nodes of the moon, the south node and the north node. Um, all the planets have nodes, but we really only focus on the moons because the moon is that closest, most personal, recent past point. The south node is something that is often called the tail of the dragon that represents an accumulation of past life familiarity. It's an archetype and a theme that we know like the back of our hand. It's old hat. We do it well. And in fact, we like it so much that sometimes we can kind of want to get stuck there again. We can kind of just want to concentrate there. And in this lifetime, we do have to use it because we know it so well. But it's the tail of the dragon, so we have to poop it out. It's something we're letting go of our attachment to. It's opposite the north node, which is the head of the dragon, which is something that's opposite where we have an overaccumulation. So we need to take a bite. We're trying to take a bite of this new, more unfamiliar energy to help balance out this equation of where our soul has kind of got a lot of, it's already kind of padded its resume. Um, and they're always opposite but equal. And so there's a complementary paradox. For you, the south node is coming from Cancer in the sixth house, and you're reaching towards Capricorn in the 12th house. Let's talk about the Cancer part first. So you are familiar with um, the domestic scene, the simple kind of home life, the home life stuff is something that is super familiar for you. Being whatever home was for you, I imagine like the home groove that you learned in life was fairly fun. And there's something about just again, you're such a home girl with your chickens and your farm and all of that in that respect. Just that vibe for the comfy, cozy familiarity of home. And it also is going to really act, I know, in this life as a respite for some of the trauma and stresses that you had to endure from some of that adverse programming. So that the eggshell and the bubble of home and the familiar past, all of that is somewhere that's strong for you. Even your past in on the other planet, all of the past qualities are something that you're really in touch with. You have not forgotten your past. You remember, and the memory is important. Those qualities of cooking, they're also wrapped up in Cancer. So the idea of cooking and again, all those home themes and family, super important. It's also really something related to Virgo, since it's the sixth house, that makes you quite the working gal. You've got the idea of keeping busy. The chores have to be done, chopping wood and fetching water, the routines of life, and how you can improve and practically sort and sift and do that is super familiar too. That's why your Mars fits being so charged. You've got a method. You know how to get it done. And it's very familiar to do the home routines and work at home and have it all together on the home front. All of that home energy, something you could do with your eyes closed. It's in your sleep. And so you're really good at maybe bringing that to the table for people that can't sit still or feel okay at home or enjoy the simple kind of comforts and cozy things. Your presence kind of rubs some of that off because you got so much of it. You use it, you nurture through that familiarity of home. The North Node has pulled you more in a career direction in this lifetime. It's made it important that you kind of apply some ambition and I don't know if your parents or the home structure, if there was a push to like, get a degree and, any of that, but the idea of achieving something ambitious, getting a degree, being a boss, being an authority, being a teacher, all of those types of climbing the mountain is something in this lifetime that um, you're getting a fresh dose of. there is, and again, there's paradoxes all over the chart because Saturn owns Capricorn. So when I think, well, how is it positioned? It's close to your moon. So there is something, even though it's saying you need more of that and less of this, there's something about the career ambition, strong and sturdy, that is familiar too. It's a part of who you are through the moon. It's something you've remembered and brought in with you. And the real gist of this story to me with the North Node in the 12th house is really advocating for you to get clear about what you can release in these departments and how you can let go of control, all of the things that you don't have control of, because that's a huge theme. Being in control and getting things done and having control of your home environment is one of the safety things that makes you feel at home. You feel at home with that sense of control. And it also helps to be a sort of balm for those times where those nefarious characters have abused that sense of control or used their control over you in whatever situations of power through career, through whatever, the collaborations in business where someone has tried to exert control over you has made you more fierce about how you erect and maintain your control. But there is a spiritual lesson and an irony here of the softening and dissolving and surrender and letting go of those forces that are bigger than us that we simply can't control. Even when we have an immaculate plan, there's a surprise slip and something goes off script, and we can't always do something about it. We just have to know how to keep swimming. And so there's that element of learning how to keep swimming that is part of the ambition that you're learning. It's learning to be able to match whatever situation shows up rather than having everything together for a particular situation and not engaging anything different. This lifetime is kind of forcing with some strong situations and structures, forcing you to become more flexible and adaptable about navigating and communicating multiple pathways to let things go and let things flow so that you don't have to hold on as tight or as stringently about things, and how you can still feel safe and comfortable in that. And there's something about the truth shall set you free. The more you know, your quest for knowledge and information and excavating and penetrating to the bottom of secrets, the more that we know, the more choices you're able to uh, discern what is and is not in your jurisdiction. And that in itself helps to free you up from where there is a tendency to be too tightly trying to control, and other things where you're able to say, I know enough about that to, just let it float by like a cloud in the sky. So that's a lot of the magnetic pole between this axis of where you've been and where you're going, what you have a lot of that you're releasing and what you're taking a bite of. So those are called that's the north and south node. And it's also a good juncture, but after Mars, the next two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are social planets. They represent kind of the social tone. And then the last three newly discovered, we say Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are transpersonal planets. They represent bigger collective movements beyond just the more surface social sphere that Saturn and Jupiter entail. So those those all move so slow in a chart, for example, that everybody born the same year as you has the same Jupiter sign. And then within 3 years, the same Saturn sign. And then pretty much your whole cohort came in with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in similar signs. So they don't have as much personal weight about who you are, except to the extent that they're having conversations with the personal planets we've already talked about and covered. We do think about what house they're in because that says what department of our life those big long-lasting gravities are happening. Um, so I'll touch on that. One little asteroid here that's fun, a splash of transits, and we'll start to wrap this up because I know I've been going a minute, and thank you for hanging in.
It must be exhausting. I'm just gonna plug my, whoops, oops, trying to anyway.
Um, So let's see. So of those first two, so Jupiter and Saturn pair, we've talked about them a little already. Everybody loves Jupiter. It's abundance, it's opportunity. It resonates to the keyword of fortune and fortunate. We think about Jupiter for being lucky and abundant. And it's the planet that says, yes, more. Saturn is the disciplinarian. Saturn is the force that structures, crystallizes, limits all of these. And so it says, no, wait. And so Saturn is often the bad guy of the zodiac, and Jupiter's the good guy. That's all just shenanigans. But Jupiter for you is saying yes in the realm of Capricorn, which is funny. It is supporting your North Node. The energy you need to take a bite of is the energy that Jupiter in this life is saying yes, more opportunity, growth, ease. And it's related to you taking on more authority, you being responsible in that career way or in that way of leadership. There's something in this lifetime that's casting you into that leadership position, and it's one of the fun reasons why you will sometimes buck bad leaders or rebel and spark the revolution against someone that's a tyrant or those abusive energies. You've got a lot of growth factor for embodying the letter of the law with the spirit of the law. What are we trying to accomplish and how do we make that work? Is a lot of what your Jupiter is bringing to the table with your administrative functioning, your executive functioning, all of that for setting a goal and getting it done. You've got really good earthy practicality in tune with that. It's happening in the 11th house, which is Aquarius's house, which is all about our friends, our groups, and the organizations we're a part of. And this again just says you've got your good luck through your friends and groups. The people that you collaborate with, whether it is your colleagues, your personal friends, your star family friends, your podcast people, all of those are benefactors in some way. There are energies that are open-minded, saying yes, opportunities, growth, all of that comes through those collective organizational components, as well as just your others. We already talked about with the Venus in general, all the others in your life, such a boon, and offering these opportunities for greater administration, or all that admin word is very much in the Capricorn filing cabinet. Your Saturn, the sense that's saying no, we talked about with your moon. It's a deep inner part of you that is already ingrained with leadership qualities and taking on responsibility. Then another key feature, Saturn on this close on the moon, I wouldn't be surprised as a very young kid if you took on responsibility like an adult really early. You were really mature emotionally. It could be something like feeding the animals or having a dog that you fed and cleaned the poop for, but like taking on responsibility and being responsible as a mature child really is in this way. Um, Saturn has said no or wait when it comes to maybe you may have learned some lessons like of saying too much or too little, but probably, what lessons around when to speak up and when to shut your mouth, when to listen and when to speak. Those can all be things where you had messages that were limiting in some way. Um, all of the lessons around communication, learning, talking, movement, transportation, that whole vibe, that whole theme was something that was very important to you, but could have felt stifled, inhibited, reserved, all of those things that again were serious. that fun factor we talked about, no kids in the fifth house with Saturn often. It makes fun, the idea of fun important, but it's kind of like structured fun, or it's almost like, okay, everybody, we're gonna have a fun time, so we need to make sure we follow all the rules and make sure it's the most fun. It's that structured fun idea. And it also says conversations. With Gemini, conversations are fun, talking to people, fun, hashing out ideas, debating, opinions, all of that analysis, fun. Um, but also something that's serious, and something that is uh, something that you're refining, that you recognize a sense of hard work when it comes to. I feel like if I was to take a speculative guess deeper into your soul, beyond just this Andrea Martin does Earth mission, I feel like there is something your soul's refining when it comes to taking on more positions of leadership. It's all like, okay, you're really good at being the rural mama bear and all those home things, but this lifetime has you playing with the diplomacy of how to administer and give orders, to be an administrator, an executive function, and manager, more so in this lifetime with a wider cast of characters. This lifetime is just giving you such a ragtag motley crew of people to navigate the nuances of dealing with, so that you're fine tuning the finesse of how you navigate and move and steer those conversations. And I love the metaphor of how conversation and transportation are both Gemini and thoughts, and how a lot of these spacecraft that move and zip zap around are also led by our thoughts, and you have to communicate, coordinate with other points in space to make sure you're in the right position at the right time to deliver the goods, to deliver the message. So it's all the coordinations and navigations through space and conversation that you're getting good at diplomacy and diplomatically navigating, that I think that after you're done with this experience, you'll be able to carry forward into some like some kind of promotion, if you will, in wherever that next administrative place you decide to fly your kite might be. So that's a little bit of the importance and the gravity of that Saturn factor there. Um, Uranus, we've talked about Uranus being close to your mind, giving it that sharp kind of electric edge for, things outside of the ordinary. It in the eighth house is also going to, again, like that, and Pluto in that eighth house, like weird, deep, intense characters. I mean, you're here to, I mean, and hello to someone that talks to aliens. All the alien vibe is very Uranus. And that in that eighth house is all sorts of business and dealings and collaborations and intimacies in that arena with a whole unique family of friends. And it is also a symbol when I merge Uranus energy and the eighth house Scorpio energy. It's the idea that you are able to turn the lights on very quickly in a dark place, like a lightning strike. And that helps you to uncover the truth rather quickly, to out something that's hidden faster than might be an otherwise slow process. So it gives that quickening agent. And it also helps when you're dealing with other characters. You're going to be able to help see through people's pleasant mask faster. You know how to play the nice smiley game, but the way that you interact is going to out people quicker, where there's a sense of seeing who someone really is, what's true, what's not, very quick in this thing. And that's part of you navigating what business to deal with others and what not to. Pluto's in that same zone. It's saying that the depth of transformation in your life is occurring through your close personal relationships, and the ones that you decide to eliminate. There are some relationships to eliminate completely, some to transform and hold on to deeper. But it just really Pluto's the slowest thing. It's got a lot of soul churn to our evolution. Another quick one, Neptune. We didn't talk about bunch about him because he's only got this just like a light favoring with your Sun, Pluto, and Mars through that sextile. But Neptune is very close to your midheaven, and the midheaven is kind of like it's a career marker. It's what we're here to do out in the world. If you look at the four corners, you've got this one we talked about, the ascendant, which is you and how you put yourself forward. The descendant talks about the others and their flavor of life, which kind of reflects ourselves on the subconscious back burner, which is talking about Venus, talked about it. And then the midheaven is where you branch up. It's the height of what we do in life, and it's opposite our roots down at the bottom where the I see, how I see myself. And so you see yourself very grounded, self-reliant, self-contained, sustainable, immovable, like a rock, practical, down to earth. You see yourself in all of those ways by virtue of that being in Taurus. And then what you do out in the world through the vocation, you are such a researcher through everything, through whatever you have done in the college atmosphere, in the tinfoil hat atmosphere, research. You are a penetrating, dig to the bottom research agent. That's Scorpio, all that eighth house energy. That that is giving you, I mean, and it's also, I mean, you're here as a spy too. Like, the idea of being like a secret spy in a war, that idea is in that mist too. Um, and it's just the idea of a very strong, psychologically transformative way that you put your force out into the world through that public sphere, through career, how you meet others. It's really about churning up that hidden underbelly of things. Neptune on that couple things. It almost gives the vibe, working in a private zone, working behind the scenes. Um, and it's kind of funny because it's also not working. And I really don't know, like your story. I know you've been the college teacher and all. I don't think you do that now. I feel like you've like retired onto the farm, and I don't know exactly how or why that works. But the idea behind an idea of not really having to work or not having a career, so to speak, letting things go in that regard can be implied. It also has something to say that in the regards of religion, spirituality, and belief, part of the work that you do in the world is helping to dissolve Neptune, false belief, or the belief structures of Sagittarius. So that dissolving of boundaries in the belief sector is really part of the work. And Neptune is such a transient spiritual planet that's very nebulous, phantasmagoric, hard to define. All of these things, that's the nature of your work. Your work is very um, amorphous. It's hard to define. And if you think about your real work and mission that involves all the upstairs shenanigans, I can't think of any other better fit for nebulous and transient and altered, these extra dimensional components. All of that is very in it. And I would suspect that it's often that kind of thing where the work of the universe that somebody does by holding that space can often be done in a way where life charitably caretakes somebody in some regard so that they can hold that space and vibration. So that's a little bit about what Neptune says there. It's not emphasizing career very strongly, although it is in Sag, which rules college, and it's interesting that you've had a college teaching career at a point. And you do have a knack for communication, articulation, knowledge, again, all of this lifelong learner stuff. But that Neptune there also supports and mimics some of the focus towards this 12th house in Capricorn, because 10th house is Capricorn's house, and Neptune is the Pisces 12th sign planet. So there's a mutual kind of reception between the theme and vibe here that says you are working in the career, but you're doing it in a quiet, subtle, behind the scenes, surrender, let it go, let it flow. Don't try to control it and just hold space for it kind of way that might not make sense when we think about our traditional standards and conventions. It's very unconventional. So that's applying to that career out in the world for us. Um, Last little thing, I do speak about this asteroid. It looks like a key. It's Chiron. It's an asteroid. There
Yeah.
are also just to share, there's asteroids for like a few of the goddesses, Vesta and Pallas, and I do look at them some. I don't put them all on the chart first of all, and I think of them like sprinkles or spices. The planets are the biggest living spheres in our solar system. They're the real organs. They're the ones doing the big conversations. The asteroids have things to say too, but it's not as pivotal. It's like something to look at as an afterthought and peel a little bit further. And so the only one that I'll introduce for someone at the beginning is Chiron, which represents the archetype of the wounded healer. And it has all three of these parts that we see with the hero, the villain, and the victim, because we often can feel like in some department of life, in some way, we're wounded. We're the victim. We've been hurt. This part of us is like a lion with a thorn in its paw, and it's kind of sore. Then there's some ways in which life there we're the hero and we're saving the day and we can rescue people in this way and we're really good at healing that wound and doing that. And then sometimes our shadow side, we might be able to admit that sometimes we are the villain and we make these decisions that wound somebody else. So we play this character that's the hero, the villain, and the victim simultaneously, and it kaleidoscopes through the wounded healer archetype of Chiron. For you, that is in Aries in the second house. And Aries tells a story about our identity and doing what we want to do and just being independent, charge forward, sense of strong identity. The second house is Taurus's house, the second sign, and it represents our resources. It can represent things like money and finances. It's also stuff. And so there could be some way that these two themes feel resonant, that in some ways you might feel like you weren't allowed to maybe charge forth and do exactly what you wanted to do when you wanted to do it, to be independent. In fact, with all that Libra weight, I wouldn't be surprised if early on and just part of feature in life was that you've learned that you always had to take other people into consideration. You couldn't do anything in a vacuum without some other party that you had to be considerate of, that you had to be thinking of. And that can impede your ability to just, I want a cookie, I'm going to eat a cookie. I want to go to the mall, I'm going to go to the mall. You'd have to, well, what is this person going to do? And how are they going to fit in? And so all of those negotiations and things that you're working on, always in consideration. So you might feel like you were wounded in that regard. In some ways, you have an excellent hack for handling up other people so that they feel like they can charge forward. You inspire and teach and heal with a message about, yeah, just do it. You're your own person. Be independent, straight, do what you want. So you've got that charge forth militant affirmation that empowers someone else to charge forward and just do what they want, even though you understand the pangs of not always getting to. Sometimes, because of that schism and tension, when the rubs get a little raw, you could be a force that gets a little feisty and warlike. Those places where something is challenging you or your system can cause you to strike out with a sense of, dag nabbit, I said so. Or I don't care if you like it or not, I'm doing it. So it can come with that forceful, I'm having it my way, whether it's up your lane or whatever. That kind of forcefulness can come through as the villain aspect of that, where you will just take a moment for yourself from feeling like you're not able to so many other places. And so that's kind of how it can wrap together. Um, the being in the second house, there are themes of self-worth that are similar. Aries and Taurus, they're closely related. They're very much about our sense of self, our independence, and then our sense of ownership. Um, the sense of like you really feeling like you have ownership of yourself and self-worth is something you've worked to heal in this life too, that's probably come from the limitations that others have imposed upon you, and just all of those other situations of like the control battles and whatnot. You've had to struggle with finding your own independence and fierceness and freedom, and that's what drives you to be so adamant that you don't lose your sovereignty. When that word that gets thrown away with this, is free will and sovereignty, that's something that's worth you fighting for. And it's why you work to heal that sense in others, because you're so intimately aware with what it's like to have that severely diminished or threatened or neglected or all of those things. And so that's behind that force as well. Um, that completes our solar system tour on the inside. On the outside, I'm not going over all of the planets. I'll look at the slowest hands on the clock real quick. Um, they're talking about what's now Pluto on your ascendant. Pluto is that really slow planet that's about deep transformation. It is a churn of evolution that gets us to go digging through all the shadow box to purge that which is non-essential so our phoenix self can rise to the top. And it is hitting your ascendant, which if you remember is one of the most important parts of your, or most personal parts of your chart, because it's the fastest. This says that over this timeline, over the next, and this is going to stay over 10 years, like this is the beginning of a huge transformation of your personality and putting yourself out there. Um, your sense of identity, I would expect, will become radically different over this timeline, over the next few years. And you may feel, and like there could be things that really powerfully force you from the inside to transform or change things about yourself in radical ways that are even surprising to you or that you weren't expected. I wouldn't be surprised if you find yourself being called to participate or speak or collaborate with more groups than usual. I mean, I feel like you're already through the virtue of this podcast. You're already collaborating with so many groups. I think it could even be the sense of like how you're growing or transforming or deepening and enriching your own sense of community and group and how that plugs into who you are and your identity. It's how you identify with your community and what your community is, and all of these Aquarius vibes hold the archetype of Camelot, which is a utopia, a goal of collective equality, equity, brotherhood, all of those things. Um, you've got a real deep sense of power behind merging with that, deepening that. And it is in tune, like I said, with Pluto's natural spot in your chart and your sun. So there's just a strong sense of transformation that's coming in through that one. That's the longest one. Um, you've also with Saturn and Neptune finishing Pisces into Aries, you've had a lot of stuff that's really been challenging you and your ability to, like your warrior self has been challenged in a lot of ways. And there's been like a lot that's been confusing and nebulous and hard to nail down, even for yourself with what you know with that. It's moving out of that zone so that we're going to see it's going to start to oppose your sun soon. Like the activity you've done and the persistence and like the stamina of like keep going, don't stop, don't get pushed back. Um, that kind of driving toward the ideal, that's also going to coincide with some changes to your personality through these planets, Sun and Neptune opposing your sun. They're going to oppose Pluto and your sun. Um, strengthening that again, the sense of leadership and where your devotion is to what you want to develop in your identity. You're going to have a strong, I mean, you already have a strong sense of your mission and whatnot. And it's almost though like that mission is like it's hidden in the background. I would not be surprised if the mission becomes more like it's got some kind of new life in your world, some sense of a new sense of mission that comes with a new sense of identity that is tuning in over this portion of the story. And then this is also hitting a really interesting spot. Uranus is finishing up in Taurus on your IC in your fourth house. And this says something about some changes on the home front. It's going to go into Gemini and be in your fourth house for a couple years. And then it'll even cross over both Saturn and your moon, which is another home marker with the moon. Um, I don't I don't feel like you're planning a move. Like I don't feel like you're trying to move or go anywhere other than off planet maybe. But so the who knows if that opens as an option as radical as things are developing. Uranus is something that says sudden changes, surprises, the unexpected. It's that electric mutation type of energy, and it's happening to you on the inside and your home environment in this fourth house. And so that's what leads me to say that, even though perhaps it totally can, like if you end up moving for some unforeseen reason, remember I said this,
Yeah.
because the idea of something unusual or sudden with home changing quickly, surprisingly, is implied. And surprise is the whole feature of a surprise is you can't predict it, but it's predicting a surprise, ironically.
It better be
It could
out of this joint. That's my
it, it
out of this
you,
joint.
I've also mentioned that Uranus is that Aquarius vibe of technology, science, quantum, teleport, telepath, ET, UFO. It is all of that vibe. So
Yep.
I don't know if you get some of that in the mix. If not, it would also show up as um, weird or unusual stuff around home or surprises or things that, to give a, the fridge going out and you have to get a new fridge. I know that's a bad one. It could also be something like something that wasn't working starts working all of a sudden to give a good one. But it says it's surprising, unexpected features around the home and it's also the sense of maybe more home community. It's the idea of having more of that collaboration and home community, which again is for you just happens to pull in a lot of visitors. So that idea of visitors or visiting home in a different regard and some changes on the home front that are going to have an electric, spontaneous, surprising type of vibe, all of that is really lining up for you. In fact, but that planet Uranus, when it gets to the beginning of Gemini, is going to be tuned in well with your sun and Pluto up here, and your ascendant and Pluto over here. You're going to have a grand trine happening in your chart that is, I mean, I really see quick, easy communications and developments and navigations. Like I see all sorts of like quick adjustments and home changes that might be kind of short burst for a while that then culminate by the time Uranus gets on top of your moon. If we're talking again in like 5 years or so, looking at the chart, I would say that you're going to move because someone having the Uranus on their moon is really loud. That is, I mean, that's something really radical at home. If your mother's still alive, it can be the mother passing. Um, or it can be the radical change, maybe mom's having her midlife crisis and bought a convertible and dyed her hair. It's radical, unconventional types of stuff with moon, home, mom themes. And you're getting it in short bursts along the way throughout this fourth house. And then it culminates with um, your home environment directly and career. There's something about these changes to your inner home and everything that is also something about changes or enlivenment and electrification and elevation for whatever the career, ambition, leadership, authority, mastery is that you've chosen at that point. And we'll see together how these themes of you taking on more positions of responsibility, leadership, and authority, but in a way that's also soft and open and allowing and surrendering continues to happen because it's continuing. You're your own kind of like space agent. Like I know that it's like working with the Galactic Federation. You think about the Galactic Federation as like the quintessential space good guys. And then you find out like, oh shit, you've got a lot in your political shadow box of like crazy stuff. I tell people all the time, you think our politics are weird. Wait till you see all the other agendas in politics. But
Bull- Yeah.
you've got you've got a sense of being a good ambassador, diplomat, leader for a lot of those things that feel like the Galactic Federation, but without the hypocrisy that turns you off, without those shadows that you've excavated and seen. Like, hey, y'all's policies and BS is really not the bed of roses you sold it as on your propaganda campaign.
Right.
All of that type of thing.
Yeah. That's
So
that's everybody's
I
mission.
have I have rambled our way around the wheel so that we've gotten a good tour, saturating things with your planets, where they were when you were born, and a splash about where they are now. Um, as one fun fact, I'm gonna roll it back to um, let's see, I'm gonna say when you were 3, that was the year we talked about, so that would be 75.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm doing this, I already looked at it before, but just to show you the key thing that highlights around that quintessential time that we would say is around that walk-in.
Yeah.
Um, Pluto. Pluto was at 2 degrees when you were born. And by the time you were 3, he's wobbled slowly forward. This gives an idea of how slow he is. He's sitting right now, it's like 8, and he's going retrograde. Let's see if you don't have any idea what month of that year we might say, do
Oh,
you?
oh, I don't know.
I'm gonna just dive into like the middle of that year around July. Um, because Pluto was going backwards, and so by July you can see he's moved from 8 to 6. So there's a good chance that if he was hovering right around 6, and if you look at your sun lives, every planet has a zip code and address. He lives at 5 degrees Libra. Well, 6 is extremely close. Pluto was on your sun around 3 years old. And Pluto is again that god of transformation and changes, death and rebirth. And that on the sun representing your core identity, the way that you're seen, how you shine and express in the world, having something that transformed and you were reborn, that metaphor and archetype is there. And for you, I think that it's a total fit that that is part of the walk-in experience.
That's
Like
what.
I said,
What
that doesn't mean that everybody that had Pluto walk over their sun had a walk-in, but for you, that metaphor and archetype really does speak the same language at that point.
that's crazy.
So when we said we look at a time, like you can't see everything at all times, but when people have told me like a year sticks out or something really big, I get fascinated because if you dial it back, there's usually a slow transit happening, something with one of the slower planets that indicates something about that, and that's what I see at that time for you.
Crazy. Yeah.
So fun little synchronicity to point
Yeah,
out.
that's quite a coincidence. Sure, sure. That's wild.
So. I think that is a really,
In
really
depth.
big extended broad tour of everything.
It's
Um,
light reading.
and I tell people all the time, you can fly the kite wherever. Some people, when they get a reading, they say, here's my info, record it and send it to me. And I do. I just talk about everything I see and they don't say anything.
Yeah.
Other people like to talk, and the more they ask questions or the more there's like something they want to dive into, the more that blooms in that area. So it is interactive.
Yeah.
And I try to keep things. mindful of whoever and whatever the audience is. So, for example, you're doing a group reading with people, you're giving something that is palatable in a group. Whereas when you do those deep dives one on one with someone, if someone wants to get into some things that might be a little bit more private, the conversation can go there. So it's really how you steer the wheel. As I say, and astrology is all about steering the wheel of your free will. The more that you do it, the more that you can open up your free will. Some astrology, when people get too fatalistic of, oh, this is in a bad sign, you're going to have a bad experience, then it can block and bind you. So you got to be careful how you think about it because, hey, your thoughts are what's making everything happen. This is just a great tool to help fine tune and articulate how you're thinking about the seasons and cycles and themes that I've seen constantly expressing validity throughout my experience with this window. So I love sharing the lens with anybody that's interested.
That's brilliant. This, the way you were able to break up this incredibly complicated um, chart that, I always found astrology completely like mind-numbing and nothing really kind of made sense for me. And again, that's the way my mind works. I'm kind of a picture thinker, but the language you used coupled with the way that you delineate very specifically each of these aspects. I mean, for me, that just like changed my whole view of astrology. I mean, I've always people do astrology were like, yeah, it's a little bit, out of my, comfort zone. But you actually took something out of my comfort zone and put it in there. So that's
I thank you for saying all that. That's one of the best reviews I think I can get is somebody to give me that kind of feedback because I love it. I try to articulate it in a way that resonates for someone, and it is such a multi-dimensional language tool that, everybody does it and sees it different.
yeah.
And I really do. I just hope that my passion and love translates because it is it
Oh,
is a love of mine to
yeah.
think about and to talk about and talk to and to share and I always say if I've done my job right, that somebody leaves with some fresh insights they're still thinking of and that they'll revisit, something again later. And it often, I say, you know yourself better than anybody. And
Absolutely.
like it said over Apollo's temple, know thyself. This is a tool to know thyself more. And when I get somebody interested or curious about like, hey, how can this dude who doesn't really know me that well say all this stuff that really shines, for what I know about myself? Then it encourages people to dig into it. And I say, once you've got your chart, start by looking up cookbook stuff like, okay, I know all the planets, and now I know, my Saturn's in Gemini. What does that mean? And my Venus is in Leo. What is that? And so you can find little cookbook definitions and synopsis and start to learn why it's
Yeah.
putting those things together because it's all keywords. It's ideas that are blending and merging in different combinations. And once you get the language, you can write all sorts of sentences and read all sorts of sentences. So,
But it's that and this is the way I work with my clients. I don't do readings. I don't say, "Oh, you're in a drama," and blah. For me, what's important is just a pet peeve. It's just the way I work, and it is that it's not a passive learning experience. It's not you just handing information to somebody. It's a very active, interactive style in which the person you're working with is actually getting the tools. You're teaching them how to fish. That's right. It's like you're not giving them fish, and that helps to get rid of things like suggestion and leading and just giving somebody some information that you're pulling out of who knows where and giving it. This is getting the person that this is their life, right? That's important is getting them to be their own guide. And all you're doing is basically translating a Rosetta Stone.
yeah. Oh,
They can do it
I,
themselves.
I am,
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of, so I've had people like, tell me what to do with this, or,
yeah,
is this going to happen, or is that good or bad? Like when they want something definitive, they've already missed the mark. And
right.
so, those cases, I have to try to figure out how to articulate something in a way that, like, you know, helps to see what the options. Often I can boil things down to, well, here's a possibility that, a little bit darker and here's a little bit lighter. And you have to see it's like how you manage things is kind of determines what shows up.
Absolutely.
I use the metaphor of like all of these are energies. They're all tones that are happening that we just, you don't see them, hear them, they're tones. And if you are a blockhead that has got your eyes closed and completely dark and rock solid, then when that energy hits, it does what light does. It has to go around and cast a shadow.
Yeah.
And when it casts a shadow, it gets your attention with something external that has that archetype and theme so that you'll acknowledge its expression in your life. However, if you, instead of being dark and like a blockhead and you nothing can get through, if
Yep.
you're light, then when it comes, you express it through you. It shines through you. Those harmonies, those tones and notes go through you instead of having to go around and cast a shadow. You express them, you sing them, you paint with them. And so it's all a matter of how consciously involved you want to be with your own evolution, with your own growth and learning and processing. It's a processing plan. Are you involved in the processing or is something else processing you? You're just being processed, you
Choice.
know?
It's a choice. It's all, everything is absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Nathaniel, and Let Into Gold. So I'll put all of the links, and I know a lot of folks are going to be like super eager. Hope you don't get like killed by too many clients. So, but it was like that, I mean, they're like, I got to get that for me, or, this makes a nice gift for
I'm
somebody as well. So we'll
It
put,
is. I'm glad to share it. And if anybody is curious, I mean, they can reach out and get in touch and we can set something up.
awesome. That'll all be in the description. And that was super cool. I think it was a great learning experience for all of us here. Certainly for me, it was an epiphany, but wonderful, wonderful. All right. So as always, we will see everyone upstairs.